Hey guys, welcome back to the Real Estate Monopoly. My name is Kerwin.
And I'm Kenneth.
And this is Jeffrey.
And we are the Donis brothers. Today we are talking about some of the books that we've read, and we just wanted to kind of take you guys on the journey of like what books have had the biggest impact on us. And yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. Starting off, Rich Dad Poor Dad. First off, one of the biggest takeaways for me was learning to work for real assets and having your money work to buy your real assets. Do you guys want to expand on that by like maybe explaining what a real asset is?
Yeah, and Robert Kiyosaki defines it simply as something that puts money in your pocket versus a liability being something that takes money out of your pocket. And one thing that I think is very interesting that I read in his book, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, was how an asset can be something that is putting money in your pocket 1 month, and then the next month after that, if it goes from positive cash flowing to negative cash flowing, it is now a liability.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the confusion comes from, where a lot of people think their home is an asset, but if it's not putting money in your pocket, then it's a liability. And it's very easy to be either, and it's not easy, I guess that's the wrong word to use. You can live in a house and house hack it, and it cash flows positively after all expenses. You're making money, putting money in your pocket, therefore it is an asset. But if you're living there and you're not house hacking it and you're just spending money on taxes and upkeep and things like that, paying the mortgage and all of that, then it is a liability. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is when people think that their house is an asset.
Yeah. Anything to add? No. All right. Number 2 takeaway for me was that it's important to teach yourself financial literacy. And I think like the key thing there is you teach yourself, because in school we don't learn that. And that's a whole other discussion about like why we're not taught that in school. But in general, I think it's important to take the initiative to teach yourself, because no one will. And like we always talk about right now, I think the biggest thing in society is like the wealth differences. And the key to that, Robert Kiyosaki always says, is knowledge. Like is the key to really succeed. Back then it might have been like land and resources and things like that. But today's day and age, it's knowledge. And so financial literacy, you have to really take the initiative to learn that. And that's why it's important to teach that. And that's one of the takeaways from that book, is like be a steward of your own education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You agree?
And he always talks about the difference between people who are prosperous and people that aren't, are the words that they use. Just to put it in like a simple term, a simple way of thinking, in my opinion. You start with the books, right? Educating yourself, but literally that is just words, and understanding financial words, and the way that like, how can you break it down to a point where it's so simple that anyone can understand it? I think everything starts at words. That's what you like. Word speaking. That's how you converse, and that's how things are read, using words, right? So I think if you start with improving your vocabulary, and inherently you'll do that through reading, then that's how you'll improve your financial literacy.
Yeah.
Therefore, you'll improve your own financial situation.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else? Awesome. The second thing was worry about getting assets, not income. That's something that we like had to make a really big paradigm shift, where chasing income, it's like that's kind of more the instant gratification, because it's money in your pocket that day. Whereas an asset, it's just going to take more time to get assets and to having them start generate income and cash flow. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, because usually an asset, like income, you can make significantly more usually from your income than how much your assets, because assets provide a return on your investment. So usually, like you get 10%, 20%.
It depends if you're starting out with.
Yeah, unless you're making like a ridiculous amount of money at your job, but usually, you're investing a significant amount, and you're making a small percentage return on your investment, but you're making money on money that you've already spent, which is making your money work for you. Yeah. And also an asset has a high chance of potentially appreciating, but that's not something you should necessarily bank on.
Yeah. And like the third, I don't know if I lost count, third or fourth, but this is the next big takeaway for me from that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, was that your mind is your biggest asset. And that has been something that we have definitely like prioritized the entire time since we started real estate and investing in general. We've been educating ourselves, right? Like with books, conferences, networking, with our podcast, we're interviewing really smart people and getting to ask really good questions, and pretty much getting access to them to ask within reason really strong questions that I wouldn't have gotten the chance to ask them anyway.
Yeah. Another thing that Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about is Robert Kiyosaki tells a story of his one day he was collecting coins, and he started like melting. Well, he tried to make his own money. I don't know if you guys remember the exact story.
Yes.
But he was trying to make his own money out of like metals and things.
He was melting like toothpaste.
Yeah. He's melting toothpaste
containers,
trying to make them into his own money. And his poor dad saw him doing that, and he called that illegal. And what's the word, like
Counterfeiting.
And then his rich dad said, I like what you're thinking. Now, this may not be the right best way, but the rich create their own money. The poor work for money. And what he meant by that was you create your own assets through ideas by building a business, that you're creating an asset. And the poor are taught to go to school, get a job, work for money, retire. The rich people, what they do is they think in terms of how can I build an asset, build a company that can go and buy more assets, solve problems. And I think that was something that is very, very important to touch on, I think.
Yeah.
The importance of like the different mindset when it comes to how you think of money.
Yeah, and keep in mind when we say like rich and poor, it's not even about how much money you have or how many assets you have. It's more like the mindset.
Mindset, yeah.
Right? And so that's what we mean is there's a certain way to thinking that poor people think, and we grew up poor.
Yes, because for example, you could be broke, but you're not necessarily poor, because poor is a mindset.
Yeah.
Or you can be,
Yeah, and another big takeaway from what Rich put it before we move on to our next book is the importance of reinvesting your money back into your business, the profits that you make back into your business. That's something that we're experiencing right now. It's not just reinvesting, but also knowing the best way to reinvest it, where it will have like the maximum growth. He talks about the velocity of money. Do you want to explain what that is?
I just assume how quick money moves throughout the economy. So like, depending on different economic situations, it'll move faster or slower. That's what the velocity of money is in general terms. But in regards to the importance of that in your business, the quicker that you can spend that money and see a return on investment, the better, especially when you're starting out. So that's something that we're always thinking about.
The faster you can grow it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more money you can make, your money make money.
Yeah. The last thing, also, I know I said that already, but the last thing is that the importance of kind of being a steward of your own money and investments and not really relying on like a financial advisor. That's something.
What do you mean by steward?
Being having an active involvement and taking responsibility, and like you're in control of it, not really just relinquishing that control. A lot of times people will go to a financial advisor and let them pretty much determine their financial future. And they kind of, I think a lot of people, even we maybe had this mindset where we assume we don't know enough. And so we kind of are, content with that place. Complacent, yes. We're complacent in that place of just kind of accepting that we're never going to know more. And so there's no point in even trying to learn more about financial literacy. And so we outsource that to someone else. And a lot of times those people don't know that much more than you do, or really they're not that savvy when it comes to it. And that's, I don't know, Warren Buffett, I believe, said the stock market is the only place where you'll, people that drive, what was the quote?
Yeah, he said something about, I don't know exactly what it was, stock market or if it was like a financial advisor or whatever, but he said that is the only place where you'll see someone pull up in a Rolls Royce to take advice from someone that drives like a Honda or something like that. Not that they're shade on Honda or anything, but
yeah. And it's not even about like how much money you make. I think that's just like a symbolic of the level of success someone, like in the amount of money someone is making, and they'll go take advice from somebody that may not be that qualified to give them advice. That's pretty much the point.
And it's not even necessarily advice. They're like, financial advisors are literally the ones that are pretty much not making you, but they're telling you kind of where to invest your money. And most of the times they're telling you to put it in stocks, in certain stocks. So that's another downfall to that. Like some of them don't know much about real estate or even other assets like oil or like other potential assets that can help you with taxes or just good assets, cash flowing assets. So
for sure.
Yeah.
They're
there's
not
a reason behind it. Like, there's no incentive for them to know anything about those because they don't get paid a commission on that.
Yeah, so they just get paid on how much money you give them, not how much money you make.
Well, yes, but also they get paid if you give them money.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
And they only invest in paper assets, so that's why
it's easier.
Maybe I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
Like they're not, like you said, they're not getting paid on how much. Like, it's not to say that they don't care, because obviously like you wouldn't go back to them and give them money if you don't make them money, but they're only getting paid on the amount of money that you're giving them. That's the percentage that they're making. They're not making money off of your profit.
But they don't make any money that they don't receive from
I mean, they might take fees and stuff, I'm sure, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they don't make money. I'm sure there is an incentive if they make more money. I'm sure they get a piece of it. No,
probably, but like, they're still getting a majority, I'd say, just for you.
The point is, I think it's just important to take responsibility for your own money and your own financial future. Have an active involvement. That's what we've kind of learned. And if it's going to be up to anyone, I'd rather it be up to me. Now, next book, though, I know we all have agreed that it has had a big impact. I think it was like the second mindset book that I read when it came to entrepreneurship was Think and Grow Rich. First takeaway was the point of everything in terms of achievement is desire, and a weak desire brings weak results, and a strong desire brings strong results. You guys remember that premise of the book?
Yes, the burning desire.
Yeah, the burning desire, and how important it is to have a desire. How has having desire helped us in our journey?
Well, I mean, I guess I can only speak like personally. Like I remember being in college and like I was just I felt like I was just going through the motions, you know, like I felt like I really wasn't alive. But as soon as I found, you know, we went to Guatemala and I kind of found a purpose. Like I didn't want my family living like that anymore. So it's like now I wake up with more of a motivation. Like I have something to look forward to kind of thing. Whereas like when I was in college, like, yes, I had a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't necessarily looking forward to like anything in the future. Like, I was just like more so, and I know that you should live in the present now, but it was more so just right now. Like, what am I going to do right now to have fun? Not thinking about my future.
Yeah. And a big part of the book, like a recurring theme, a thread that he talks a lot about, Napoleon Hill is the author. He mentions that you have to take responsibility for your own actions in life. And that's what Robert Kiyosaki talks about too. Like that's like a lot of these people, there's a victim mindset and a victor mindset. And a lot of victims, when it comes to like having that mindset, they are very passive in their own life. They're not in the driver's seat. Whereas a lot of these other thought leaders like Napoleon Hill, he really emphasizes the importance of taking control and accepting responsibility for it, but you also have the power to change your outcome.
Yeah, and one thing that Napoleon Hill and Robert Kiyosaki both said in both of these books was, in other words, what they say is you can't teach someone to want to learn, so you have to have a burning desire to want whatever it is you want, whether that, and it starts with learning, so you have to want to learn whatever it is you want to do, and that way you'll then be more open to it. But you can't really teach someone who doesn't necessarily even want to learn in the first place. So that's where the burning desire comes into play in regards to like business is you have to want whatever it is. That's the first step. And then after that, obviously there's going to be a lot of obstacles and challenges. So the more, I guess, driven you are, regardless of like the obstacles and the failures, the more likely that you'll actually get there, because there's no getting out of those. You know, I think we both, and all of us, we know that. We faced so many different obstacles and we had that burning desire. And I think it only grows the more you learn.
What do you mean with the desire?
Yeah, especially
as you get closer, like you get a little taste of the cake kind of thing.
Yeah, but I don't even think closer, because to say closer is implying
there's something
there's
you
like
have
an
to
end
get
point.
to. Yeah.
So I think the more results you get,
like the more wins.
Yeah, like the more results, or like whatever that means. So like
proof of concept.
Yeah, like now it's a different challenge, but like it gets more fun in my opinion. And the more educated that you get, and the more you learn about whatever it is you're looking to do, the more you learn that you don't know, but also the more confidence you'll have, because at least you're learning. And now and Mark Cuban likes to talk about it. He says to get a competitive edge, you have to be willing to do more. And by him, he says, and from what he's saying, he means like he's always learning. And if the minute you get complacent in your education, that's the minute that you'll lose that edge, and that will be like the demise of your whatever you're doing. And that works for anyone, athletes, business owners. But in our aspect, it's learning and always being hungry to learn more. That's why I think we should always be reading like daily, a lot, watching videos, being very, very persistent and consistent, and having that burning desire when it comes to education. Because I think that's the one thing that will continue to help us grow and excel in our business. But also, once you do get to the top, that's how you stay at the top. Yeah.
Well, I've noticed like one of my favorite ways to learn as well. Of course, you can be intentional with your learning by like reading books, but one of the best ways to learn is actually doing it. And that's what the Napoleon Hill in the book says, like reading an entrepreneurial book isn't going to make you an entrepreneur. It's the actionable steps that come after the education. And so to build off of that, like for me, and I think for us as well, every single time we get to the next level, we call it like checkpoints in this business that we've never had to encounter. Like certain things, like we've never had 20 apartment complexes to manage in our portfolio at once, for example, but that's a different problem. And so that's such a unique problem that you don't really fully learn how to deal with it until you have to deal with it and have to learn in the moment. And even that is like a learning experience. So that's just kind of to say the action is part of the education.
I agree. I think, I guess what I was saying was like,
but I hear you.
Yeah. Also, just in business in general, it's always changing so much that if you're not always on top of what's going on, and you do that through educating yourself, you're going to fall behind because other people are doing that. So in my opinion, you have to always be learning. And I think that's where the burning desire comes into play. Like to tie it back to our point. If you have a real true, like desire to do whatever it is you want to do, it'll start with the education, but the continuous education on a compounded effect, you'll slowly start to understand it at a higher level, and you'll start to be able to, when you're taking action, it's important to do both. I would say action is more important than the education, but it's almost like just as important to do both, because if you're taking action, it's just not going to be as effective if you don't really know what you're doing. And also there's too much that you're going to like miss out on in regards to the knowledge that you need to actually have a successful business.
Yeah, I think you kind of learn the steps and then you enact on those steps. And then I think they kind of like, once you start doing stuff, or at least personally, I guess when I start doing things with my hands or just more, I guess, in real life, I can kind of get the like motions to what I'm learning, right? So like whatever it is, like if it's, for example, cold calling, you know, you can watch videos or maybe even read a script about how to cold call, but then once you cold call, you actually throw yourself in that pool and you kind of like just get better at.
Yeah. I like how you guys mentioned the importance of like learning in general all the time, but I think marrying that with action is learning from other people's mistakes. And that's where Napoleon Hill talks about the mastermind and the importance of surrounding yourself with the mastermind is so powerful. And I think we have a constant like built-in mastermind with us three, but when you go to a mentor who has already experienced certain things, and like we call, some people might see them as failures, we call them learning lessons, but when they have already experienced certain adversity, and Napoleon Hill also talks about adversity and the importance of it, but if you can leverage someone else's adversity and not really go through it yourself, that's like compounding of knowledge, you know, because you don't have to go through it, but you also might as well have if that person can just teach you the lessons they got from it.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a physical mastermind, but also what I like to do is not necessarily the adversity part, which I think is a good point, but in regards to like what I do is let's say I have a challenge that I'm facing, and it's not even always business, it's anything, personal decisions and things like that. Subconsciously, if you just start to, like for me, it's the people I look up to, like a lot of billionaires I'll just have in my mind, and I'll just kind of have them as a voice in my head, and they help me make decisions. And based on what circumstance or what situation I'm in, I'll kind of look for them, like
for guidance.
For guidance. And it's almost
what
like
they would
this.
do in that situation, kind of like, what would, you know, like, I don't know, whatever billionaire you're thinking.
Yeah. It's like having an advisory board in my mind. And you kind of just like pick different things, people for different things. For example, it's like work ethic. You can kind of think of one person, or you're at the gym. Pick one person, and then for a business decision, you have some other person. And depending on like the conflict, faith, things like that. That's like a constant mastermind. And I think if you can get really good at it, which I'm not at the point I can say I am, but in regards to, I think that's a skill that you can work on, and eventually every single decision, if you think about it, you're making it based on what they would do. And if they're successful in a way that you can look up to them in that specific
arena,
space, you're taking pretty good advice from someone on like a daily, almost every continuous basis.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Well, yeah, I mean, I think in general, Think and Grow Rich was like one of my favorite books of all time, and it really helped us with learning. I think, and The Millionaire Next Door can kind of, the millionaire mindset also build on this, but in general, like wanting money isn't bad and wanting success isn't bad. That was one of the other key things that Napoleon Hill talks about, is really pursuing like money and success. It can actually be a good thing, and it could have a positive impact on the world.
Yeah. And one thing that he also talked about, I don't know if you were going to touch on it, but having the importance of having a team, and not Who Not How is another book, but that Napoleon Hill, the same message. He talks about when Rockefeller, who had these people come into his office criticizing him for not knowing a lot, and they accused him of being like just not smart. And he was like, okay, fine, ask me any question. And there was like 3 people, and they started like bombarding him with questions, and he had the different buttons on his desk to call in different specialists, and whatever question they'd ask, he'd click a certain button, someone would come in and answer the question, and then he'd say next question, and then he'd do the same thing over and over again. I thought that's like a metaphor for it's not about what you know,
it's about who you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and not how to do it, which is another good book.
And that's a good point, because like you don't necessarily need to know how to do everything, but like you said, it's like if you know someone that can either help you out on that field, answer a question, or that knows how to do that specific thing, like that's so much more important, because no one is perfect, so you're not gonna know everything, but it's all about who you know, and using that to your advantage, because there's a lot of people that know a lot of people, but you're not necessarily using your circle to your advantage.
I agree. All right, last book, Outwitting the Devil. That's also by Napoleon Hill. I remember reading it. You guys read it before me, and I would say one of my main takeaways was that there is like you spend your entire life either operating from fear or faith, and it's funny that that's like actually becoming more of a timely thing for us as well in our own journey with faith. But like, if you're either being optimistic, it's like a cup half empty, cup half full.
Yeah, 100%. I think we always, Cohen touched on it earlier this week off camera. Yeah. We were just like, well, I don't know where we were. We were walking or something, and you were like, maybe it was me, I don't know, but it was like you'll have these certain periods or moments where a negative thought comes in, and obviously everyone wants to have positive thoughts all the time, but that's just not possible.
Yeah.
So you'll have these negative thoughts that come in, and the cool thing is, I think it is a conscious choice whether or not you go and follow that negative thought, or if you go the positive route. And in my opinion, are you choosing negative versus positive, good versus
wolf?
evil?
Yeah, which wolf you're.
Yeah, and that's what Outwitting the Devil talks about. You have these two voices. I think everyone does. And you can make a choice, and I've tried it, and it works. You can choose the positive or the negative. And obviously, 10 times out of 10, the positive will be more beneficial for you. But I think most people, it's easier to do the negative. Wouldn't you agree? And I think most people do. Maybe because unconsciously, they're not even aware of what's going on.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Yeah. With that book, I think one of the biggest, not takeaways, but like realizations was in the part where he said he was going like something like a command. He calls them thoughts, but when you have a thought, it's different than when you have a thought when it's almost literally, like quite literally a demand. Like something just says, do that right now. And it's like, why do I have that feeling or gut feeling? But basically he explains that he was told to go to spend the night or a few nights at the most expensive hotel, and he was broke. Like he had no money. And he said he had to borrow money from one of his relatives in order to go be able to spend the night at this hotel. And that's where this whole book took place, that at the hotel he was literally writing. Like it was a command, he said, and he says that a lot of people don't listen to those commands, but in the book he explains that command is what led him to going to that hotel, which at that time led him to write the book, which sold him multi-millions of copies, and then he made a bunch of money. But that's not the point. The point is, a lot of people live life without listening to those commands or those gut feelings, and they don't realize that we're all being guided. People don't really realize that they're being guided, and so once they actually get in tune with, whatever, meditation and just listening to that voice. Guidance, that voice, I think a lot of good things start to happen to you, and you kind of start falling into your I guess the path that you're supposed to be on. Yeah.
And for anyone that isn't familiar with like the book, I remember the premise of it being when everyone has like this internal voice, and in the whole book is like an extended metaphor, but essentially the author, Napoleon Hill, is having a conversation with the devil. And the devil is a metaphor for, well, depending on if you're a person of faith or not, but pretty much it's like just like that voice that's keeping you from fulfilling your full potential and wants people to be drifters. And pretty much like the devil is seeking to make us permanent drifters in life and not achieve our full potential.
What is a drifter?
A drifter is somebody who isn't pursuing their fullest potential and is doing other things. I mean, it could be like a whole plethora of things, but yeah. Do you have any other takeaways from that book?
No, I thought we all touched on the main ones, or at least my main ones.
Yeah, and I mean, really, this is some of the takeaways that other people have had, but that I kind of thought, and I wrote them down. So the definitive of how important it is to identify the purpose in your life and just your own purpose. I think that is very true. For some people more than others, but you have to have a purpose that gets you driven in the morning, gets you up out of bed, and just makes you excited to pursue something. You always have to be pursuing. Discipline is key. And that comes from the form of habits and just in general, because at the end of the day, your willpower will run out, right?
Yeah.
Also, controlling your environment is really important. If you're surrounded by other drifters, Napoleon Hill talks about that, remember? If you're surrounded by other drifters, then you're more likely to become a drifter as well.
It's easier to become a drifter because, the people around you aren't really doing much. So.
Exactly. And then some other things that he talks about is having patience and good timing and understanding that good things come with time. So you have to have that delayed gratification and be able to wait. And then on top of everything, the ability to take action and also think before you act. There's like a balance there where you have to have some kind of thought before you take action, but don't wait too long. And don't get stuck in that analysis paralysis, because I would say that stage of analysis paralysis is also drifting.
Yeah, that book is so like accurate for someone at the beginning. It's like touches on almost everything that you need to know. And I think Rich Dad Poor Dad and that book combined are the best 2 books you can read when you're first getting started.
I agree 100%. So Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. We shouted out 2 of those. We had other books, but we ran out of time.
Yeah. We can always talk about
some in another episode if you guys are interested. But let us know, guys. What are some final takeaways that you guys have for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I build a habit of trying to read a book a week. So I don't know that. I think obviously maybe you can't do that because you don't think you have enough time or whatever. But at least try to make it a daily habit to read.
That's a good point.
10 to 20 minutes a day. Making it something that it's like, I don't remember why you said it to me like the way you said it, Cohen, but oh yeah, I remember you said it. It's like something that where you have to make time for it regardless of what you're doing in your entire life. It does not matter anything else. Like that's the one thing. And Jim Rohn, I was listening to a YouTube video. He said, if you become a daily reader, that'll change your life. And you should read before you eat. Like that's how it should be more important than eating, because you can go a few days without
food for your soul.
Yeah, you can go a few days without eating. That's proven. But he was saying reading is so important that it should be a matter of you cannot go a day without reading. So I agree with it. I think that's the thing that has changed my life. And I think it'll change anyone who does that as well.
Yeah. Another thing I will say is I think, and I kind of started doing this, just kind of learning from, so whatever you want to do in life, whether you want to be an athlete or a lawyer or something, just study someone that you look up to in that space that is actually doing it, whether they build a big company or just were successful in that space and achieved whatever you want to achieve. If you kind of watch what they've done throughout their life, and if whether or not their company has still, stayed a giant or has gone down, learn from their mistakes, learn how they got to where they're going, learn what happened, learn like the steps that they took, why they took them, learn from their mistakes for sure, because there's a lot of things that you can learn from what they did that caused them tons of money and just a lot of, I was ranting, sorry.
It's fine.
What am I supposed to do with that?
Just learn from their mistakes. That way you're not, I don't know. Sorry.
Finish your point. Stop looking at me.
Finish your point.
Finish. Or you just don't get a point and I'll just cut you out.
Okay, you can come.
You have to say something. Just think of something.
Just do it again.
Yeah.
So I would just say, just watching people that you look up to in your space and just kind of seeing how they got to where they're going or where they've gotten to, and also just watching out for their mistakes. Like learn from their mistakes. That way you don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah. And to kind of build off of that, and there's a principle that, remember Napoleon Hill talks about, like controlling your environment. I would challenge people to really be intentional with that. And in a way to do that, and a practical way to do that is not only is your environment like your physical environment, but it's also what you're consuming. So what Netflix shows are you watching? What are you listening to in terms of music? That all can affect your mood, the amount of knowledge you have, even what lifestyle you aspire to. Like, for example, if you, I don't have anything against rap music, but like if you listen to a lot of rap music where there's certain negative things that they aspire to, then you'll innately find yourself thinking about that at some point and wanting to aspire to that. Whereas if you focus on podcasts and real estate podcasts and things like that, audiobooks, then you'll start realizing, oh, there's maybe something else that I'm interested in, or, it's more productive, and things that are more positive in general. So I would say really be intentional with controlling your environment, whether that's podcasts, books, limiting the negative kinds of music, even like certain music that's sad, that'll make you sad, or just make it seem like one relationship is the rest of your life. Like things like that, where you might not realize how the impact it's having on you, but it does. So yeah, if you have any questions about like what we talked about today, or any hate comments or anything like that, just share it all down below. We'd love to hear it.
Send all the hate comments to Kerwin.
Yeah.
Yes. Donis Kerwin is my Instagram. DM me. Awesome. But God, thanks so much for tuning in. If you did, and if you stayed to the end, you're awesome. Thank you so much. We hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Let's get out there and take action. Yeah. And where can they find us?
You can find us at Donis Brothers on every platform. The podcast is The Real Estate Monopoly, which we're on right now, right?
Yes.
Cool. Also, YouTube channel, Donis Brothers, everything else. Jeffrey Donis, if you want to check me out.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Let's get out there and take action.